Alright, so I've been meaning to make something like this for a while now. That is, play a game inclined to my interests, talk about my experiences with it, and throw in fun bits of trivia along the way. What are those interests? Monsters! But not in that kind of way. Nah, I'm just a fan of things with a variety of monsters, creatures, demons, and all things in between. Sometimes robots. I just think they're neat. This is mostly due to the movies and shows I saw when I was a kid, with the main ones, of course, being Pokemon and Digimon, who, despite having some similarities, have no relation to each other. But anyway, while the first game I ever played was Super Mario World, which I was bad at, the first game I personally owned was Pokemon Blue. But that's a story for another time. Now we're going to be discussing the first video game in the Digimon series, Digimon World. Why? Well, with Digimon having its 25th anniversary this year, with their new game also coming out this year, and currently no plans to port or remake the old games, I thought, why not? Also, I still haven't beaten the game yet. It is kind of funny how my first video game was Super Mario World and my first Digimon game was Digimon World. It's a small world after all. Despite coming out in the West at the very end of the original series, it's actually based on the VPets that Digimon started as, which is basically Bandai saying, hey, let's take our Tamagotchis, but market them to boys, but also make them look like 90s comics with that crazy, gritty edge and make them look battle-torn. This baby dinosaur has ripped muscles. It's so dumb, but it's great. I actually had one of the original VPets that came to the West, because I wanted to raise some cool 1-bit monsters, which I was bad at, so I was pretty familiar with the mechanics. And I put quite a bit of time into this game, which I was bad at. But I have something now that I didn't have then. The internet! While it won't be as exciting as a blind run, I'm sure it'll still be a fun Digimon adventure. That was so bad, but I'm keeping it. So let's pop in this PS1 copy into the PS3 and get to it. Okay, quick side note though, while Japan and North America got some pretty cool cover art for this game, what is this PAL version art? Now, I can get trying to market to adventure fans, but this has nothing to do with adventure. You can't raise a Tentomon. Gomamon's not even in this game! Starting things off with a zoom in on a park in Japan, a bunch of kids are having a VPet battle, all of whom are voiced by Izzy from the Digimon TV series.
He evolved this morning. Wow! I bet he can beat Metal Greymon. No way! Prodigious!
Including the player character.
Wow! Metal Greymon and Metal Mamemon!
Get to the point, okay?
After a brief skirmish that, honestly, I still think is pretty cool, despite being old enough to drink, Digimon introduces himself and asks a few questions, such as if I have a Digivice, which, a few. He then asks if I prefer day or night, which determines if we start with an Agumon or a Gabumon, respectively. I decided to go with day because that's the Digimon I started off with on my first VPet. Gigi then asks for a name, which some would say is Mameo, but that's just a nickname given in a different game altogether. But given the name on his TCG card is weird and there's a character limit, I just went with my own name. Then he asks for our Digimon's name. I went with Zero, because V-Tamer is cool, and was running at the same time. After a scene of the player arriving home and getting sucked into the Digivice, you know, typical Friday evening stuff, I'm dropped into the middle of File City, surrounded by Gigimon, a bunch of baby Digimon, and our freshly evolved partner, Zero. Digimon invites us to his house to explain the situation better. To summarize, the city was bustling, with a large variety of Digimon. But something caused them to lose heart, leave the city, and many forgot how to talk, soon forgetting that they used to live in the city, becoming wild and vicious. Because according to him, I can speak Digimon, and I'm good at raising Digimon. He should see my collection in the VB lab, which, like my Pokemon collection, many of them will not see the light of day again. Digimon tasks us with figuring out what caused all this, as well as to repopulate the city by recruiting Digimon all around File Island. With that out of the way, it's time to start the game proper and explore this digital world. Which is technically just this one island, but semantics. To start things off, we go back to get some items from Togemon, then we go to Tanamon to get some daily meat, which is a produce in this world. Then we head west to the gym where we'll be spending a good amount of our time. The reason being is in order to get certain evolutions, we need to meet certain requirements. 3 out of 4 categories to be exact. And to figure out what you need to fulfill those categories, you need Google. Those categories being stats, care mistakes, weight, and some bonus thing. If you want the nitty-gritty details, just pause here. Early on, the stats are pretty easy to train to get to the next stage of evolution, but after that it becomes a bit difficult. So at the start of the game, after getting your first evolution, it's best to work toward the other 3 categories. After training our offense and defense a little bit, while also making sure to take some food and bathroom breaks, it's time to head south for our first encounter of the game, which, as it turns out to be, another Agumon. Yeah, early battles are a little dull, I guess you could say. But that's mostly because early on you don't have many attacks or commands to give. As your partner becomes more big-brained, they start to learn more commands, such as attacking, defending, keeping away, or using specific techniques. But for now, we're limited to just
counterattack with whatever you feel like, man!
You know, the funny thing is, this game is probably closer to how battles are done in the Pokemon anime than the Pokemon games. In the games, you can't tell your Pokemon to dodge out of the way, and here your monster friends actually move around the battlefield. Anyway. After beating Agumon to submission, we managed to convince him to come to the city. There, he opens an item bank for us to store some of our inventory, because this is back when you weren't allowed to carry too many items, even if that makes things very inconvenient. This is personally one of my favorite parts of the game, because as you recruit villagers, they open up new facilities or upgrade existing ones. Between training sessions, where we make sure to take food breaks, bathroom breaks, as to not rack up care mistakes, as well as putting Zero to bed, as aside from the VPet terminal in Digimon's house, it's the only way to save the game. We further explore the native forest where we come across Palmon pretending to be a flower, and a hungry Kunamon who attacks us for giving him food, both of whom are significantly more difficult than the Agumon earlier, due to Palmon being able to hit across the entire screen with her poison attacks, and Kunamon being able to easily corner us in this tiny arena. Thankfully, we're able to finish off both with a powered-up Pepper Breath. Beating them upgrades the meat farm and unlocks a shortcut to the Great Bridge, respectively. Sunamon tells us that the bridge is still under construction, but there might be a Digimon willing to help us get across the water. That Digimon being Sealamon, who helps us hop across to the jungle area on the other side. There we find a Betamon who joins us because we smell like the city. Immediately heading back to the north side of the beach, we see that the city has just finished working on the bridge. Sealamon, now out of a job, agrees to join the city, leaving his 2 friends behind to live in the wild. Together, Betamon and Sealamon open an item shop in the city. Back in the jungle, we come across one of the trickier minigames. Here, a Centaurmon catches us trespassing and threatens to shoot us. The trick here is that at every intersection, you must turn. If you try to head straight, even if it's to beeline for the exit, you will get shot. The nice thing is there's plenty of items lying on the ground, and even if you end up taking the wrong exit, you can try again immediately after. After solving the maze, Centaurmon congratulates us on our work and joins the city as a doctor, because if there's anyone I'd trust with my medical needs, it'd be the guy who just blasted a hole through me. Feeling good about that success, I decided to take a look at the next area, and immediately regret it. Oh no. This was bad. I had completely forgotten that this guy challenges you as soon as you enter the area. I had not healed. I barely had any healing items. We're still rookie. He is a champion. We are totally gonna stunlock him, keeping him from doing anything at all. Wow. This is, So yeah, because Tyrannomon's attacks either require him to get really close or to do a big charge up, Zero pretty much clowned him with his fast fireball attack, which, by the way, is his starting move. When Tyrannomon finally goes down, he does not join us, but instead goes back to his guard position. Taking this as a sign from DigiGod, we head back to finish up Zero's training until he evolves. As it turns out, we didn't have to wait too long, because after a bit of boulder pushing, Zero finally evolved. And oh my gosh! So yeah, evolution is not as clean cut in this game as it is in the Adventure series, but I still think it's pretty cool, and I like Tamer's version of it. One traumatizing evolution sequence later, Zero evolves into the best Digimon, Greymon. Now before anyone starts going, oh, you just went with this canon evolution, how boring. Listen, this takes effort to get. Not only is Agumon the only one who can evolve into Greymon, all of Greymon's requirements include all of Centauromon's requirements, who requires less things to be trained. So if I made Zero a bit too big brain, he would have turned into that centaur who was shooting at us. Also, if I wasn't paying attention to his weight and the amount of battles he was doing, and I trained offense too much, he would have evolved into Meramon instead. Finally, how could you hate this happy Triceratosaurus Rex? And to bring this all back to V-Tamer, there's a scene where a bunch of Agumon evolved into all three that were mentioned. With a champion Digimon, it's finally time to head west and check out the drill tunnel. Passing by the Gobblemon guarding the area, we come across a Dromojimon who attacks us out of stress from an intense heat, so we calm him down with even more heat. After coming to his senses, he tells us that things have gotten hotter the closer they drill to the volcano, but that there might be something causing things to heat up more, to which we tell him we'll investigate. But before that, we do a little extra stat training, as well as getting in a few battles for Zero's next evolution. Heading to the underground pond part of the tunnel, we come across another Dromojimon who's trying to dig his way to the volcano. We offer to help him out, and he says he'll pay us 500 bits to move mounds of dirt, which also increases our stats a little bit. After many trips, we get all the dirt out of the way. We're then told to wait a little bit while he finishes up. So we take this as an excuse to get in a few more battles and rest up before the next major part of the game. When we get back, we see that the path is blocked off by a large boulder, which we just have Zero knock out of the way. We then head inside the volcano to find out what's causing the Dromojimon so much trouble. It turns out to be a Meramon who's on the brink of losing it. He seems to be trying to erupt the volcano as a signal of the island's impending danger. However, he's rightly told that that will just make things worse, though he's a bit heated, so he won't listen to us. We then start what would normally be a pretty challenging boss fight early on, but since he has less health than Tyrannomon, and we have a champion level Digimon now, we manage to beat him without too much trouble. After he gets back up, we tell him about our plans to rebuild the city in order to combat the incoming danger. He agrees to help us out by opening up a restaurant inside the city. Defeating Meramon cools the lava in the area, letting us grab some items and allowing the Dromojimon to continue their work. While we wait for the Dromojimon to finish, we do a few battles as well as some brain training so Zero can finally learn a new move. The earthquake caused by Meramon's last attempt at eruption seemed to clear a path to a new area as well. Traveling through Mount Panorama, we come across an injured Unimon. After slapping a band-aid on him, he decides to head to the clinic and then join the city. There he upgrades the item stall to a full-blown item shop, though this does put Betamon and Sealamon out of a job. That's business for you. At least Betamon makes a nice fountain for the city. Heading further west, we end up in the Gear Savannah. To the north, we find an Elecmon, who, after zapping us out of caution a few times, decides to join the city and light up the night for us. In a somewhat hidden area, we come across a special item shop. Special in that it sells trading cards. While they do serve some function later in the game, for the most part they're just for collecting. However, this shop has a secondary, unintentional purpose. When buying a card, if you press to confirm and cancel at the same time, it causes the menus to glitch and fuse together. Confirming here triggers something in the recycling shop next to them. Normally you can't use this shop unless you drop an item after losing a battle, but thanks to that glitch we can buy an infinite supply of chainsaws. Attempting to purchase these with less than 9,999 bits will let you have a piece of that infinite amount of chainsaws for free, and when you sell back those chainsaws you get to max out your cash. Doing so gets us the bits maxed medal. Now, many of you might see this as cheating, and I agree. However, given how difficult this game is on a blind playthrough, I'm going to take every exploit I can find. I then decide to use this newly found wealth to buy every single card I can. Because, as anyone who knows me knows, I like collecting cards. To a concerning degree. After collecting about 80% of the entire collection, it's time to finally move on. With 99 of both medium floppies, we go further into the gear Savannah to come across a feisty Patamon. After beating it, it wants to go another round. Beating it again causes it to want to fight us one more time. Beating Patamon a third time finally causes it to give up and join the city to work a few shifts at the item shop. Further north, we come across the Trash Mountain, which is home to a bunch of Sukamon, who are just big gold piles of poo. We do manage to find an old fishing rod here. We also come across a Sukamon who does seem interested in visiting the city, but not officially join. All he really does is kind of clean up the area around the toilet. The methods are best not gone into. Talking to the king, he denies any potential requests, because he is the king. South is a Biyomon who keeps running away from us. We're only able to catch her after splitting up to corner her. Biyomon tells us she thought we were kidnapping people to join the city. After convincing her otherwise, she joins the city to work shifts at the item shop like Patamon. Man, Sealamon and Betamon really got a raw deal out of this whole item shop business. Maybe Unimon hates fish and only hires other flying Digimon. You heard it here first, Unimon is racist against aquatic Digimon. Taking a break from the Savannah, we head back to File City to do a few more battles. I thought it would also be a good opportunity to try fishing. After realizing that was a dumb idea, we go back to battling, as well as doing some training to pass the time. After getting a splash of cold water, Zero finally evolves to his ultimate form, thus becoming the best Digimon, Metal Greymon. And it's the cool blue virus Metal Greymon, not the common orange one that's used in everything nowadays. This was one of the few ultimate Digimon on the first VPet I got, which I tried and failed to get so many times. So this is extra special for me. Though it's here I must point out that this is as far as the evolutions go in this game. Originally, this was the last stage Digimon could evolve to, as aside from a couple pendulums which came out right before this game did, there was no mega stage. But anyway, evolving to Ultimate increases our tamer level, and seems to tire out Zero a little bit. After updating Digimon on our progress, we're challenged by a Greymon who wants our dojo's sign. Even though we tell him we don't have a sign, he just wants to fight anyway. Despite being a higher level, stats was not one of the requirements we met in order to become Metal Greymon. As a result, this Greymon actually has higher stats than us and puts up quite a challenge. We still end up beating him in the end thanks to our multitude of floppies. Impressed, but also noting our need of improvement, he decides to join the city, opening up the last facility. That facility being the arena, which hosts daily tournaments. But we'll get to that much later. Returning to the drill tunnel, it seems the Dromojimon that we helped carry out dirt for has finished making a shortcut to the Gear Savannah. We then ask him to join the city, in which he opens up a little digging shop to where after a few days he'll go find an item for us. I decide to head back to the card shop area to pick up some more chainsaws so I can drop them off in the item shop. That way if I'm ever low on cash, I can just pick up some chainsaws and max out my cash again. Heading back through the jungle area, we head north to Overdell. To the right there appears to be an indent to what would be a bridge. However, we do not dare try to cross it, for we do not believe in ourselves. To the left are a couple of Dark Rizamon guarding the gate to the next area. However, they're not very good at their job because I easily juke past them. The next area is the Overdell Cemetery, which houses many spooky Digimon, including this lone Bakemon. This Bakemon speaks his own language, and we have to try to interpret what he's saying. Giving him a simple yes, yes, no makes him want to join the city. He doesn't really do much, he kind of just hangs around at night. At the back of the cemetery is the Dark Lord Mansion, or the Grey Lord Mansion in English. I don't know why they call it that, it doesn't really have anything to do with Greymon. You're only able to come in here if you have a virus Digimon as your partner, which Metal Greymon just happens to be. I guess because scary virus Digimon are supposed to give you enough resolve to head inside. Granted, when your partner is a cyborg dinosaur with rotting blue skin, there are very few things that can unnerve you at that point. Heading inside, it's basically the Resident Evil mansion. Right down to the various locked doors you need to find keys for. After unlocking various doors, we eventually find ourselves within a laboratory. This really is Resident Evil. Though after wandering around a bit, we fall through a metal grate into a study. Following the path here leads us to a bedroom with a giant coffin in it. So instead of giant mutants and zombies, we have vampires. Said vampire is Myotismon, who is weak from hunger because none of his servants have brought him food in a very long time. He gives us the key to the fridge so we can bring him some steak. However, once we get there, we find out that the fridge is empty. But we find a note telling us to return to the position where you got the points from the dumb one. This note is referring to where we found Wikimon, which is a bit rude. Just because he speaks a different language doesn't mean he's dumb. Wow, between this and the racist Unimon, there sure is a lot of prejudice in the digital world. Heading back to where the super intelligent Wikimon was, we find what appears to be a bloody steak lying on the ground. Though, knowing that meat is a produce in this world, it could just be steak sauce. It's also a consumable, meaning you can feed it to your Digimon. The programmers knew this, and made it so that you can pick up a new one after you leave. Thing is, they didn't program a check to see if it was already in your inventory, so you can just leave, come back, and there'll be a new one every time, and you can fill up on steak. Feeding Myotismon a steak, he invites us to dinner. Side note, in the TV series he's voiced by Richard Epcard, who's voiced hundreds of characters in various popular shows and games.
How very glib.
At dinner, Myotismon brings up that his men don't really listen anymore. We offer to take them into the arena to sharpen them up. He agrees, but only after he finishes some research. Back in File City, we talk to Yurimon, who tells us about an invisible bridge to check out. Which, yes, we needed to talk to him in order to be able to cross it. But before we do that, we head north of the Gear Savannah into the Gecko Swamp. I took a wrong turn and went through into the misty trees, eventually finding a Agumon who attacks us out of fear. After calming him down with a missile strike, he decides to join the city and hang out with Dromojimon. Heading back into the Gecko Swamp, we come across an Otamamon who calls us things like Dimwet, Chowderhead, Dum-Dum, and Oda Geek. Taking great offense to this, we kick the tar out of the little Polywog. After which, we are beset by a group of Gekomon. They take us to Shogun Gekomon, who instead of being mad about us beating up Otamamon, shows his appreciation for our progress in rebuilding the city. He advises us to seek out Cherrymon in the misty woods in order to get through to the next area, as well as putting a spell on us to help find the way to him. One of the Gekomon then tells us he is a fellow collector of cards. This allows us to sell our duplicate cards to him for points, to which we can use those points to redeem certain items, the most important one being the Amazing Rod. There's another Gekomon here who, while he won't join the city, will join the arena for us to fight. Heading back to Overdell, we make our way across the invisible bridge to the Great Canyon area. Once there, we wait around a little bit until it's bedtime for Zero, because we're gonna need the save for this next part. And I think that's a cue to take a break as well. I'm just gonna take a moment to say thanks for sticking through this. This is all very new to me, and I'm learning a lot in regards to video making, so it's not perfect, but you know, I thought this would be a fun project, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. And I hope you come back for the next part, where we tackle what's arguably the most difficult part of the game. In the meantime, here's some fishing B-roll. See ya.